The views and opinions expressed on this podcast is solely of the creator and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, or opinions of the listener. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. ChatGPTs and AI technologies were not used or harmed in the creation of this podcast. This podcast is 100% human made by your host, me. Hi. Hello. My name is Melanie. And this is Under the Moon Paranormal Presents Ohio Legends, the podcast about the Buckeye State told by an Ohio gal with an Ohio accent. And if my accent doesn't bother you, we'll get along just fine. Today, it's the harvest moon, and this episode is brought to you by October 2025 full moon, known as the harvest moon, symbolizes culmination, reflection, and gratitude, making a time to honor what we've grown and released and what no longer serves us. This supermoon in Aries invites bold action and personal growth, encouraging individuals to trust their instincts and prepare for transitions and transformations as they transition into the darker half of the year. Spiritual themes for this full moon. Oh my God. Oh my God, there's a cat ball. I have some paranormal equipment behind me, and there's a REM pod, a Flux 2 device, and there's cat balls all over the perimeter of this room right now. And I gotta let you know, don't know what that was. So keep your eyes on the background because there's paranormal equipment on, okay? And it's spooky season. So it's a supermoon in Aries, invites bold action and personal growth, encouraging individuals to trust their instincts and prepare for transformation as they transition into the darker half of the year. So, spiritual themes for the harvest and reflection. The harvest moon symbolizes a time to gather what you have sown throughout the whole year. It encourages reflection on personal growth and achievements. Releasing and letting go. This moon invites you to release what no longer serves you, making space for new intentions as you prepare for the darker months ahead. You're going to have Aries energy in this full moon, a sign associated with action, courage, and instincts. This energy can amplify emotions and drive you to take decisive actions in your life. Balance of independence and connection. So it's Aries and Libra. I hope I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I mispronounce things. Remember, I'm from rural Ohio. So the polarity heightened during this full moon emphasizes the need to balance self-assertion with awareness of others. It encourages nurturing your individuality while fostering connections. So that is your full moon report for October 6, 2025. So it's the spooky time, spooky season. So you guys have sent me your stories throughout the year, and I've kept the more juicier ones that I thought were spooky for our Halloween listener extravaganza. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And remember, if you want me to read your spooky story on this podcast, you can shoot me an email right here, underthemoonparapod@gmail.com, and I will read your story on the show. So before I get into it, the ghost that resides in the studio has been very, very loud since the veil started thinning. So Halloween is a time between the living and the dead where, you know, the veil is thin and then they can communicate easier with us. So whatever they are, I don't know, because I thought it was residual until I started using this space as a studio. So that's why the paranormal equipment is on in the background. So maybe the ghost wants to be on the podcast and go play with the equipment. So far, we've had some cat ball action, and there's a K2 meter up there next to the candle on the top shelf of the altar there. So this first story comes from Rachel Lynn. I am able to hear someone playing the piano in the church. His piano has accompanied singing on 2 occasions, with songs that are unknown to me. While napping, a man's singing voice woke me up to a cold breeze. Spooky. Way to kick that off. Thank you for your submission, Rachel Lynn. So yeah, definitely, if it ever happens again, keep a log of it and send me some more emails. We'll read them again on the next episode. Or maybe if you keep us a log throughout the year, we can read all of it at the next listener extravaganza. All right, next story. This is from ULLD. Okay, so not sure what this was. I just came back from a vacation with my husband who was jet lagged and tired. We had been back a couple of days and had gone to bed. I was still awake and turned to see someone standing at my side of the bed. In moonlight, I could make out that it was a male in underpants. It looked like my husband's shape, and as it was looking down at me, I asked him if he was okay. Thought he was sleepwalking or something. And then I realized that he was still in the bed. And he said, "Yeah, honey, what's the matter?" That's spooky. I looked around him, and when I turned back, whatever or whoever it was gone. Perhaps it was your husband's astral body because you said that you guys had just come back from a vacation, so you were probably like really jet lagged, right? So maybe that was his astral body projecting on the outside. Who knows? That is a very spooky story. Thank you for your submission. Next story. Okay. This one's a bit longer. My dad's mother passed away a few weeks ago in Kentucky. Parents live in Arizona. They drove out here and stayed for a few weeks and then returned home. I opened an app called Time Hop and it shows you what has been going on that day in the past. I remember telling a friend or two about this dream because it messed with me. Hence why I'm going to send you some pictures. I'll put the pictures right over here as we're telling the story, okay? Okay, so time hop. My parents kind of knew that they wouldn't get to Kentucky before she passed, but my dad was hopeful. Either way, it was a 3-day drive for them getting here, and on the second day, I opened the time hop and saw me telling my dad about a dream. He was convinced it was about his younger brother Keith, who was dying or did die of cancer shortly after this. But the resemblance of how I had like a premonition for my dad is weird. In regards to my mamaw passing, the couch I described is actually apparently one of the couches she had in her living room, and the part about the upper back pain, what sent her to the hospital was the fall of the back on her head and the upper back. She had a stroke the next day and in the ER and passed, and it's super odd. I never tell my dad my dreams either. So 1 year ago to the day before she passed, these are the screenshots. So it's a conversation between her and her dad, and she's describing a dream. So yeah, that's kind of weird. We'll put the screenshots right up there while I was telling the story. So thank you, Emily Grimm, for that submission. Next story. Okay, while playing a game of Clue with my fiance, I saw the shadow of a cat jumping over the couch. Our eyes searched the room and all of our cats were accounted for and not in the location of the room that I could have seen them. We looked at each other and we both said, "Did we just see a ghost cat?" I totally believe this just because I myself, when my daughter was, I want to say she was 3 or 4, we saw a ghost cat in an apartment where you weren't allowed to have cats. That used to be a funeral home. So yeah, I believe that. And my husband saw a ghost cat as well while we lived here. But I think that was a premonition of the cat that our daughter adopted. So that's what I think. I thought I'd seen a cat ball going off, but I don't think that was it. Yeah, ghost cats are real. I believe that for sure. Okay, so who was that submitted by? Rachel Lynn. Thank you, Rachel Lynn. Okay, next story, Sweatman. In 1973, we lived in a house in Hayward, California. One evening, we happened to be watching a scary movie in the living room about dogs attacking people. While we were watching the movie, the light over the kitchen sink turned on, while Dad got up and went there and turned it off and came and sat down. After just a few minutes, it came back on again and you could hear the click. It was one of those toggle switches. So Dad goes back in there and turns it off and stands there for a few minutes. So nothing happens and he comes back and sits down. About 30 minutes goes by and there's a loud crash in the kitchen. And we all jump, of course. The dish strainer full of dishes was in the sink, but in the opposite side of where it was on the counter. Like something had picked them up and flipped them over. I guess someone didn't like us watching that movie. That's spooky. Very, very spooky. I just paused. I had just paused to take a drink and the booze-bee. It turned red. Wow. That was spooky. Very, very spooky. Okay, next story comes from an anonymous poster. I have never seen any type of spirit in all my 70 years. Well, I just got out of the hospital. While there, I saw 3 distinct, what I thought was people that no one around me seemed to see. 2 of them walked past me and I said hello. but they never looked at me and went into the walls. Another one was a man in a Desert Storm type of uniform, looking and smiling right at me with employees walking around and through him. When I smiled back, he just slowly faded away. I feel the first two were residual, but do you have any ideas on the military guy? About the military guy, he definitely was aware of you, so maybe he died overseas and is visiting family. Maybe he has some family that's in the hospital that's not doing well, and that's why he's there dressed like that. I mean, it's definitely weird. I mean, hospitals definitely haunted. And yeah. And I think the older you get, just like as the younger you are, you're more open to the spiritual world. Okay, so thank you, Anonymous. Next story from Sissio. I'm a mother of a 5-year-old boy who was born on the 28th of August in the same day my dad got buried, about 7 years apart. Okay, so 2 months ago, he said he dreamed about his grandma. My mom died when I was 4. I don't even remember her, and he don't know her either. So the next day, I find my long-lost mother's only photo and stick it on the fridge door. My son was jumping up and down saying, "Grandma, Grandma." I asked him what he was talking about, and he says, "That's Grandma I saw in my dreams when I was sleeping." So fast forward to today. There's a loud thunder and showers today, and at my parents' home, my son loves the thunder for some reason, so I have a chair on the front porch for him to sit on when it's a thunderstorm. I stand by the door, I hear him shout, "Oh, hello, Jesus." Surprised because not that I don't believe, but I've never took him to church. I ask him, "Who are you talking to?" And he says, "Jesus just greeted me with, he's with Grandma and Grandpa, and the grandpa who's inside me." My God, your little boy is, he's sensitive for sure. Kids 5 and under, they still have lingerings of their past lives. So he could be your grandpa reincarnated into your son. That's spooky though, because he said the grandpa that's inside me. My goodness. But thank you for submitting your spooky story. That one really got me. All right, so the next story is from Connie. I was in a historic home where I am on the board of directors. During a meeting, I felt a little hand pat me on the face. The family who lived there lost 3 little girls, and I am sure it was the last one who patted me. She had been seen by other visitors in other parts of this home. I believe you. I believe you, Connie. Thank you for your submission. Okay, so the next story from Phyllis. I had an experience a few years ago. It was rumored that my grandfather had Native American blood in him. Well, I was sleeping and I had an unusual dream. I woke up to find a young Native boy floating over my bed. He was beautifully dressed in Native clothing and appeared to be about 10 years old. He was pointing at my closet where I kept a small yellow gift bag where my grandfather's World War I memorabilia, letters, and pictures were kept. I sat up to see what he was pointing at, and it was the yellow bag. Not thinking much about the dream, but I got up in the morning and I made coffee and I remembered the dream and decided to check the bag out. So at first I found nothing, but something told me to turn the bag upside down. So I did, and I shook it. I found a crystal quartz. I believe my grandfather had carried this as a talisman in World War I. I had made it into a necklace, which I wear often. Somebody was definitely telling you that you needed to carry that around. Thank you for your story, Phyllis. I love that good touchy-feel story. I really do. Okay. The next story is... This story is also from an anonymous submission. My daughter and I used to go out to places. We would take spirit boxes, weight cat balls with lights that needed a good amount of something to move them, drops of paint on a canvas, small toys, and whatnot. We set these things out on a blanket one time before we had even fully set up anything we were being talked to on our spirit box. We were given the name Patricia and that she was lonely and wanted company. We expressed that she could talk to us, just like we were looking for her as a place to set up for our stuff. We were then told through the spirit box to keep walking and go right, then left, and then stop. It was quiet a while, so we decided okay, we'll do our setup here. And we started, and upon our finish to the spirit box, it went off again and said, "I am here." We waited for a bit on my phone, camera recording everything, just talking and see if they might move stuff or like some things we brought to communicate with us. One of the cat balls started to light up when we weren't even near it. So we waited and then again on the spirit box that said, "I'm here." At that point, we were kind of looking around our setup, waiting to see what's next, and I happened to read the graves that we were next to, and I'm pretty sure she had led us to her grave. The only thing that occurred that we weren't near the paints, and I use a very specific for that reason. They stain clothing and skin to rile out being messed with by one of us. But there was a very long red line that looked drawn onto the canvas, which unfortunately the artist also got onto the blanket. I'm not sure what was there to symbolize, but definitely engaged with us. And I'm not sure for the fact that our faces, it said in the video that I posted on my YouTube. Definitely drop your YouTube in there, honey, and I'll put that on here too. We've made a huge move since then, and we're looking for places to visit with paranormal activity. So I'm hoping to get back at it. I hope you get back at it too, and definitely build up a reputation with your local cemetery. Because once you put up a reputation with those spirits that reside in your local cemetery, you'll get conversations every time. But thank you for your story, honey. Okay, and the next story comes from Lovely Fig. All right. This happened around 30 years ago when we had moved to the city a year or two prior. We found a great bar that had the best meals and we made lots of friends, and we go at least twice a week to catch up. There was one guy there who was a regular, but he was like an associate to us. We never really spent much time with him. At that stage, I was only 23 and I didn't know I was a sensitive or an empath. I never heard of it or knew absolutely nothing about it, but this guy, from the first time I saw him, he scared me. Now at 56, I'm totally aware of it, and I truly wish I had better intuition back then, and maybe I could have done something. So one night he walks to get a beer next to us, and we were standing, and he said hi and went down to the other end of the bar to bet on the horses. I noticed that he was on his phone a lot while betting, which was a bit odd, but I thought maybe he was getting tips or something. After about an hour, he stormed out and he glanced up as he was walking towards us, and his eyes were black, and I reckon I stopped breathing. Then he reached up out the door to leave, and I swear I saw a black shadow right behind him, following him just as he walked out. I felt physically ill, and I told my husband I wanted to go home, and it was only around 8 p.m. on a Friday night. He was annoyed with me, but we went home. Early the next morning, my husband got a phone call saying that the guy had gone home and unalived his fiancée that night. And then in the early morning, he unalived himself by driving at a high speed and ran straight into a truck. Still to this day, I think he had an attachment or something dark that made him do what he did, because he never caused trouble at the bar. He never got angry, and his energy always made me feel terribly anxious. Damn. If you are, someone who is struggling, please reach out to the hotline that I'm going to post right here. No one has to go through difficult emotions alone. So yeah, thank you for your story, Lovely Fig. That was definitely a heavy hitting one. The paranormal world is definitely strange, and it has ties to death like this. And if this kind of stuff makes you uncomfortable, just fast forward. This story comes from Mem. Hey guys, I just wanted to share an experience I had about 2 hours ago while driving home with my good buddy. We were just cruising around for a good many hours when he finally decided it was time to head home. We were on Route 2 West Virginia heading towards Steubenville, Ohio. As we get on to the ramp for Veterans Bridge, we saw what seemed to be a faceless man with a backpack. His head was turned around like how owls do, and his face was not there. He kind of looked like a hitchhiker. He didn't even react to the car at all, and he was just standing there. It was very weird, and quite frankly, it spooked us. He looked up an urban legend and found that sort of thing happens and does exist, and there's a few stories on it. If anybody has any similar experiences, I think we'd all love to hear that. So if you have a similar experience around Steubenville on Route 2 with a faceless man with his head kind of swiveling like a hoot owl, definitely send a story in to this email address, underthemoonparapod@gmail.com. We could do a whole story about this for sure. Thank you for that submission, Nim. Now you got me on the hunt for this weird cryptid dude, humanoid. Future episode? I think so. Okay, so the next story comes from Ambra. Okay, not sure if many of you have ever had an encounter with a shut up person or believe in shadow people, but I want to know anybody's thoughts on this folklore here in Ohio that represents shadow people. Okay. This is one of the most mysterious things that people talk about in their houses or even in Appalachia in general. Shadow people. And I can honestly tell you that I've lived in the oldest house in Chillicothe and I saw many weird things here. Sometimes out of the break of an eye, you will see something that you don't quite understand. Is it a shadow person or is it just a figment of your imagination? You be the judge. Okay. So let's tap into what shadow people are. Okay. Shadow people is a worldwide paranormal phenomenon, but Ohio has its own share of chilling history and folklore connected to them. Reports of shadowy figures, dark human-shaped silhouettes that move quickly in looming corners have been tied to haunted places across the Buckeye State. And here are some Ohio-specific connections. So the Appalachian influence, the hills in the small towns of southern Ohio, where I am located, especially near the Ohio River and the Appalachian foothills. Appalachian foothills. They are steeped in ghost stories. This is why I have this podcast, for these reasons right here. Locals have long told of dark watchers or shadow men appearing on back roads, in abandoned farmhouses, or on the edge of forest. These tales often connect to coal mining or railroad accidents in the 19th and the early 20th centuries, where restless spirits were said to linger. So, a little example of some places. You got the Ohio State Reformatory and the Mansfield Reformatory, same place. You got the lunatic asylums, you got the tuberculosis hospital, private homes and roads, such as small towns like Circleville, Chillicothe, and Peebles. There are campfire tales of shadow people appearing on these rural back roads that I used to just frequently drive down. Drivers sometimes report a dark figure stepping into the path of their car to only vanish, or even ghost cars. So paranormal belief shadow people are thought to be spirits, possibly demons, or even interdimensional beings. In Ohio folklore, they're often tied to places of suffering, like prisons, hospitals, battlefields. So sleep paralysis or stress can create hallucinations of shadowy figures. Interesting, Ohio's factory and shift work has led to plenty of late night sightings by tired coworkers. Let me tell you something. The place I work at is a tiny factory in rural Ohio. It's haunted, okay? It's haunted. Haunted. Those shadow people lore mixes with Appalachian ghost traditions with real historic sites like prisons and asylums, making it one of the state's eerier paranormal phenomena. So if you have ever had an experience, please comment below. And I'd love to hear from you. There's no judgment at all in this podcast. I won't let rude comments be left on there to make you feel bad. So go ahead and tell me if you have seen a shadow person. I would love to hear about it. But thank you for that submission, Amber. It really got me on a tangent about shadow people, but it's perfect because we're ghost hunting while podcasting here. All right. And the next story comes from David. So this really happened to me. We have a home security system which was on while peacefully sleeping one night. It suddenly went off at 2:32 in the morning. I jumped out of bed and grabbed something to protect myself in case I came face to face with an intruder, telling my wife to stand by the phone ready to call 911. The monitor said that the back window had been triggered, but when I got there, the window was closed and locked tightly from the inside. The next morning, the service technician could not find any problems. Later that morning, we were informed that my mother-in-law, who lived 1,000 miles away, had passed away at 2:32. Wow. That's pretty sad. And she was definitely like the first person that she contacted was you after passing away. So she must have really loved you guys. And I'm sorry for your loss. And thank you for submitting your story. All right. And this next story comes from Dawn. That happened to my husband today. We have known for years, 33 to be exact, that there is someone with us or multiple someones living with us in our home. Today, my husband fell asleep on the recliner while I was at work. Keep in mind the computers and TVs were shut off. And he said that he heard a male voice say his name, and it sounded like it was a computer-generated, like auto-tuning. The odd thing is that he said when he heard it, both of the dogs jumped up and barked at the same time. He said he could have blown it off thinking he was asleep but the bark at the same time made him think it was something paranormal. Sometimes I wish I could find out who it was here, but then again, I'm a bit afraid to stir things up. girl. Now, make sure you don't have an Alexa, a Google, or one of those Ring door cameras, because you could really debunk a lot of stuff with those. So if you still think it's paranormal, but you're scared to do what I'm doing right now with the ghost equipment on in the background, don't be scared. You have to be assertive and tell them who's boss, because, they can really take advantage of you if you let them. This is the first time I've really ever done this kind of stuff in the background in this house. But, they've been trying to reach out to me for a couple weeks, so I'm giving them free range while I'm podcasting. So anyway, do not be afraid to test out ghost equipment, especially if you want to find out answers inside your own home, right? Just you go, sage and tell them to leave when you're done. Be assertive. And thank you, Dawn, for submitting your story. Okay, and our last story is anonymous. So, my husband and I had the weirdest experience. For Father's Day this year, my husband and son wanted to go see a movie, so we went to a theater just a few towns away. As we were standing in line to get the popcorn, my husband looks at me and says, "Hey, there's my cousin." He strikes up a conversation with this man, and they talk about work. He tells us about how he's been recovering from back surgery, and they hadn't seen each other in probably a decade or more. We watched the movie and didn't think much of it. We go to visit his dad afterwards, and my husband tells his parents who he saw, and they just blankly stared at him. His mother goes on to tell him that cousin had passed away in 2018. Sure enough, I find his obituary online, and he had a lot of trouble with his back before he passed away. My husband has been freaking out ever since. That is either a timeline glitch or it was a doppelganger and they just played into the conversation. I mean, how do you explain that? That is so bizarre. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a good way to end this episode, don't you guys think? So if you have enjoyed this listener extravaganza episode, please submit your stories to underthemoonparapod@gmail.com. And if your story is spooky like this anonymous post, I'm going to save it for the next Halloween listener extravaganza. And, if you got like a little 2-line spooky story that you want to share with me of something weird that happened to you or a friend or a friend's friend, send me a line. Drop a line in the comment and share. Rate and review. All these things help the podcast grow. From me to you, happy Samhain. Don't forget to talk to the dead ancestors that love you, that have always watched over you. And until next time, my friends, stay spooky.